Welcome to another exciting edition of the Torah Watchman Show, going international. Hope everyone's well. I hope everyone having a good Shabbos or Sabbath Kodesh, no matter where you are in the world. Yes, ben-Emmett here loves all Jews, all creeds, all ethnicity. Don't judge a book by its cover. It doesn't matter if you're Caucasian or if you're colored, black, or whatever the color may be, scheme, and your ethnicity that you receive from your parents. It's all beautifully sweet. It really is. God made us uniquely different for a divine reason or divine purpose, because he wants us to all get along. And at the end of the day, say, Am Yisrael Chai. I have for you, as a short video, as from Parashat Devarim, the Haftarah portion. There's a sidra I want to read to you. When I read this in synagogue today, it really touched my heart in a mighty powerful way that I could not wait to make this video. It's from the prophet Yesaiah. Chapter 1 is notorious for being the most horrendously negative book, portion in the entire Jewish Bible, the Tanakh, against the Jewish people. What I'm saying is full of admonitions from Yehovah, from the Eternal One, against the Jewish people for their behavior and their actions. And exactly, Isaiah tried to warn the people of Israel ahead of time, in the future, what would happen. Just like Moshe did in the first few chapters of Devarim in the past parashat, that if you do this, you will be blessed. If you do that, you will be cursed. If you know what's going to happen in the future, or if you're educated, you learned something in university or higher education, or you read a scholarly peer-reviewed book and you learned something that really changed your life for the better, and you sit on that information, think about how many people will have to go around circles, like the Jewish people going around Mount Horeb, around Mount Sinai for 40 years in the wilderness of sin. literally. Help your fellow brother out. Help your fellow Jewish sister out. Help your fellow Noahide out. Whatever the sojourner and stranger in your land is, help them out. Remember, we are commended by God, by Elohim, that we are to be Torah builders, not Torah destroyers. That we are to be a light into the nation. So where I'm going at, in Yesaiah, he has an admonition against Israel. Understand Yesaiah and when he lived and everything else, is that, he lived through at least 3, maybe 4 kings before he's finally met his demise. He lived a long time and tried to warn those Davidic kings what was happening, but they did not listen. Now consider Israel today. Consider the Jewish people, a majority of which, there's about 15 million of us now, according to the latest census and statistics, scattered throughout the world. There's about 9 million Jewish souls in Israel, and now it's Israel today. Did you know that? And there's a growing population of Karaite Jews, approximately 40 to 50,000 Karaite Jews, that Jewish sect, are thriving in Israel right now like never before. I mean, there are thousands of others scattered out to the world, but most of those Jews are in Israel, and it's like the city of Ashdod. Okay? That's where I'm moving my family. What I'm saying is, what I'm getting at, that Jews come in all different colors, all different aspects, all different personalities, and everything else. Okay? We come from different backgrounds. We have come from different worldviews. Political spectrum is very diversified. But what I'm saying is the battle and the conflict between, historically, I would say between the 8th and at least the 12th century, 13th century, between Karaite Jews and the so-called rabbinates. In other words, those people that were part of the rabbinical Judaism. In other words, they invented Torah, oral tradition, to create a halakha version 2, because they thought that Moshe essentially had too many gaps in his laws, in his code book of his halakha. So they thought the rabbis had to come in and help God out, help the prophets out, literally, and fill in the gaps to halakha. And they invented a whole new set of rules and policies. There are thousands and thousands of these small in the weeds requirements for halakha that rabbinical Judaism, rabbinites, enforced or compelled or, carted Jews around them, or all of the Jews around them. They ran the show. They controlled everything. As far as yeshivas and places of learning, even publication of books and all this. So that dichotomy of truths started from the 8th century with the Onites, and then the introduction of the Kahites in the 9th century and so on. We've been a minority for a long time, but we are the most ancient sect of Judaism still surviving today. We really are. Believe it or not, I'm going to get back to Yisrael. I'm getting ideas. Believe it or not, Orthodox Judaism, as far as the way it's branded today, is a little more than 100 years. I'm talking about the late 1800s. To tell you the truth. And Judaism, their viewpoint, and being Torah-centered Jews, they said we don't need an additional dozens of books like the Talmud and Mishnah Torah and all the other opinionated writings by rabbinates. We believe that what God gave us in the finished canon of the Tanakh is perfect and divine, and it's full of traditional information that's helpful for Jews' decision-making today without the need of a bunch of rabbinical opinions. Now, to each their own, right? So this was going on in Israel, in Judea, and the northern kingdom during the time of Esaiah, the prophet. But there was a lot of really bad things happening in northern Israel. Isaiah was trying to warn. He was being the Torah Watchman per se. He was being in the tower and warning what's coming, invading armies and everything else. And he told the black and white truth, the inconvenient truth, which I have marketing right now, the inconvenient truth. I already told you I'm not politically correct at all. Well, Isaiah was not politically correct either. I mean, he would literally go up to a Davidic king and pretty much told him off, not because he had an opinion, but because God told him to do this. Isaiah was an amazing prophet in that he was the only prophet that actually, when he was speaking most of the time, it was God speaking through him. So turn with me to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9. Again, this is the Haftarah section for Parashat Devarim. And God is speaking here. Had not Yehovah of Hosts left us a remnant, we would soon be like Sodom. We would soon resemble Gomorrah. You know what Sodom and Gomorrah, what happened in the time of Abraham, blessed memory. Those cities were very great. There were 5 in all, Canaanite cities around Dead Sea. And I don't think there was a Dead Sea back then, but it became a Dead Sea after these cities were overthrown. There literally were. So when you talk about the most immoral type of human beings on the planet, post-flood, you're talking about the Sodomites and the people living in Gomorrah. Essentially is what you're talking about. Now imagine Isaiah supposedly comparing observant Jews to the same people that were wiped out in Sodom and Gomorrah. This is what Yehovah God was saying very forcefully. Okay, in verse 10, he said, "Hear my word." And again, he's speaking through Isaiah, his prophet. Yehovah was literally speaking. He said, "O rulers of Sodom." Now he's talking about the Jewish elite, the Jewish aristocrats, those people high up in the echelon of Jewish society during his time. And we're talking about probably, I would say, 700 BCE. But he's talking about these elitists there. He said, "You may think you're getting away with what you're doing, but I know everything that's happening. But what Yehovah said, he said, when you spread out your hands to me in prayer, when you ask God to do something for you, whatever it may be, I will hide my eyes from you. That's really tough talk coming from Melech HaKolam, the king of the universe, talking supposedly to observant Jews that are keeping kosherut, the animal sacrifices, the grain offerings, and all of this. He says, I do not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wow, full of blood. Is he calling these Jews that he's speaking to in the future? He's not talking about necessarily the Jews of his time. He's speaking about Jews in the future that will literally be carried off in Babylon. And this, in the same context, the ninth of Av, that we're going to be on our knees and mourning, essentially, like Yom Kippur, about the destruction of the temples, okay? So back to this Isaiah in chapter 15, he said, no matter how hard you pray, I will not hear your prayers. Why? Because your hands are full of blood. Now I'm going to define what it means, your hands full of blood, in the next verse. Just keep an open mind. I don't think that Yehovah God was accusing the Jewish people, even in his time or in the future, of committing cold blood murder, first degree murder. I don't believe that's what. So there is some poetry here. There's some symbolism here. Understand, this is just the way Isaiah spoke. So in verse 16, cleanse yourself and remove the evil of your deeds before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Okay? So you have another dichotomy of truths. Stop the murder. Your hands are full of blood. Wash your hands. Cleanse your hands. You remember the plague of blood that struck Pharaoh? No matter what he did to find clean water, it was every vase, every basin, everything was full of blood. And no matter what he tried to do to cleanse his hand, he couldn't. Only God could wipe your sins away. Consider that. In verse 17, Yehovah says, learn to do good, seek justice, strengthen the robbed. And this is describing the word evil. So strengthen the robbed, those people that have been robbed, those people that you stole property from, whether it's investments, maybe loan guarantees, maybe your homes, your homestead, your crops, or whatever it may be, your workforce, whatever could be possibly taken from you to resolve the word robbed. He said, perform justice for the orphan, plead the case of the widow. There you are. Remember, your hands are full of blood, and your deeds are utterly evil before me, to the point I am not listening to your prayers, and I'm not even I'm not even addressing anymore your animal and grain sacrifices before me. So consider what I'm saying. It is evil before God's beautiful eyes to mistreat the vulnerable of your society. Whether it's a sojourner in your tribe, people of other nations blended in with Israel, even when they were in the desert. I mean, there were Phoenicians and Egyptians that came with Israel when they left Goshen, Egypt. It's just a matter of fact. I mean, later on, Ruth the Moabite joined tribal Israel by proclaiming her love for Yehovah, the God of Naomi. So the case of the widow, the case of the orphan, this is something that's repetitively mentioned throughout the Tanakh. And God is speaking very forcefully to Israel. Now look at Judaism today. Look at rabbinates, those people that say they're ultra-Orthodox or Orthodox Jews and rabbis and things of this nature. Think about what they're doing good and think of what they're doing wrong. I've already told you about my experience, okay? As a Baal Teshuva Jew, I can't tell you. I was indicted by a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, who I thought he loved me, and I thought he loved my family. Essentially said that I was 1/3 of a Jew because my mother was not fortunate to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. Essentially because she died in ignorance of her ancestry. That story goes around left and right, folks. There are Jews. They were adopted by Roman Catholics and nuns and people like that. You see it all the time. There are a lot of Jews right now and a church and things like that, and they don't even know they have a Jewish ancestry even on the father and mother. But the way rabbinical Judaism works is that if your mother was not buried in a Jewish cemetery, and if her mother didn't like Shabbos candles, you're not considered a Jew. Okay, that view has been halakha since the 1st century. What I'm saying about plead the case of the orphan and widow, this is talking about tzedakah and charity. Okay, during the months leading up, the month of Tishrei and other months, especially this is a good time, a ninth off, to think about charity, giving to those people more vulnerable than you are. And that's what it's talking about here. I give charity to orphans in India because God has led me to do that. Why? Because I met these people through happenstance. I saw a problem. I found out that no rabbi was reaching out to them. It touched my heart. Yehovah was touching my soul, so I reached out to them in charity. The same thing with Jews in Uganda. They're African, and why are 99.99% of all Chabadniks, all Chabad rabbis, Caucasian like this? Why? Every Orthodox shul I've attended in the last 10 years, per se, they only had a few blacks there. They had a few Yemenites who come there. And the last Orthodox shul that I was a member at, for example, there was someone from Ethiopia, I believe. And he was from a tribal area in Ethiopia where people were Orthodox Jews. So he reached out to the Orthodox rabbi there about Orthodox conversion. Well, in the last 50 years, a particular rabbi said, "I'm sorry, Charlie, that's not my policy. I don't convert anyone." And there's systemic racism in a lot of Orthodox shuls too. So how can you be thinking about Gentiles, or how can you be thinking about orphans or widows who have no one to hold their back, no one to stand up in court for their cases? God knows they're hurting. They know they don't have anyone, no benefactor, maybe no family to take care of them. And the vulnerable in society is what God was trying to tell Israel to the Jewish people, both in his generation and generations to come. This was Yehovah's trying to say point he was trying to make, that I'm sorry, I would totally disregard all your prayers, all your chakras, all your tefillin, all the devices and talismans that you may employ as an Orthodox Jew. You think it's hitting Shamaim. We pray that it does. But repeating all the liturgy, all the legalism, and things that are copied and written down by other rabbis suffocates your nefesh and your personality, that God created a unique person there. And you're doing all this heavy lifting by emulating animal sacrifices through prayers, and you don't even know why you're doing it because it's tradition. I have asked other people and Orthodox rabbis to reach out to, for instance, Ugandan Jews. Like in the capital of Uganda, they did nothing. I've reached out to other people too, to reach out to Nohides, and I had literally Orthodox rabbis say, "What is Nohide? What is a B'nai Noach?" They didn't know what it is, what it was. If it's not in their comfort zone, if it's not in their social clique or religious clique, they don't care about it. They really don't care about it. So back to this Haftarah in Israel, the evil was the injustice done to orphans and widows. The evil that was done to those people that were robbed and taken advantage of, maybe because they didn't have the knowledge, or maybe they weren't devious enough to be able to know that someone's coming after them, that needed close their door, lock their door, or be able to prepare a contingency or whatever for having everything taken away from them. Okay, there are people that I know in my area, for instance, they don't know if they can pay rent the next month. They don't know if they can pay their car note next month. They don't know how long their contract job will last. There are people hurting all around us. You know, humanity is our job. We are to share the love of the Torah with everyone on the planet. That includes Noahites and Gentiles, not just Jews. Many Orthodox rabbis say those filthy Gentiles, essentially, they don't deserve the Torah. I'm not going to share the Torah. I'm not going to open up my synagogue to them. I'm not going to pray for them. And we're all created in the image of Yehovah, right? Wrapping up this Haftarah, verse 18 is the blueprint for success for these people under admonishment and judgment, pending or already ongoing during the generation of the Messiah or future Jews, like the Jews in Judea that were carried away by Babylonian swordsmen, destruction of the temple, destruction of the walls of Jerusalem, and taken away in Babylonia. Come now, let us debate this. Let us look at this. Look at this problem statement that I've identified, says Yehovah. If your sins prove to be like crimson, the color of crimson, they will become white as snow. If they prove to be as red as crimson dye, which is even darker red, and we're talking about red as a color of blood, a color of warning, like a red light, stop what you're doing, watch out, that kind of thing too. If they prove to be red as crimson dye, in other words, something is so stained with pigment, you cannot wash it out ever. They shall become as wool, as white as wool. Remember, sheep, lambs, rams with unblemished wool was considered to be kosher enough for a sacrificial offering before God. Now let me get off my soapbox. I love all of you. I love all of you. And I've already addressed before the evil of anti-Semitism and the insider threat within Judaism in itself. That's, we don't need any more enemies, right? We don't need any more enemies. But we have enemies within Judaism, Jews judging other Jews as less worthy. And also Jews in another place in the world that they're totally oblivious. I mean, I can go and hand out a pamphlet or something. Here's the contact information. Here's the person, the individual. They have a huge issue, even having kosher food, say, around Pesach. I can do that. But every Orthodox rabbi I've talked to is totally oblivious to that. They don't care about anything. They have a tzedakah box in their shuls, and they encourage everyone to drop $1 or $2 or whatever. Where does that money go? I have no idea where that money goes, but it never leaves a shul. And there's always a hungry Jew, a more hungry Jew than you. I know. God has blessed me immensely, but not every Jew has been blessed so much. If you share the blessing of your wealth with others, if a hungry belly will not listen to the words of the Torah as much as a belly that's full. When I sit down at my table, I'm hungry. And I'm more of an opportunity in that moment in time before I eat to think about the hungry in the world. But when I sit down and eat, if I had a decision before I sat down to eat, to write a check to someone, to help out someone who has not had a good meal, in a week, and I've known people like this. I've given money to Jews in New York, for instance. I found them on Facebook. Then you'll be totally oblivious to them. It's called sodomite salt. Yeah, it is a part of rabbinical Judaism. I do agree with that. The vulnerable of society, reaching out those people that are hungry, those people in need. It's very important. You have that sodomite salt in your eyes, you cannot see the needs around you. Remember, Isaiah chapter 1 is the most difficult book of the 66 chapters in Isaiah for a Jew to read. Why? Because it forces you to look in the mirror. Don't wait for Yom Kippur and beat your chest until you're blue in the face to say, I've done wrong. And literally in a Siddur and Orthodox shuls, there's a list of all the sins that you could possibly do wrong. It's a huge list. and you read what other people wrote, how sincere and how emes is that? Then you're reading all that list. I've done wrong. I've done wrong. I've done wrong. Forgive me. Forgive my tongue for saying evil speech against my fellow Jew. I've even heard rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, tell me Lashon Hara does not apply to people that are not Jewish. Listen, bearing false witness against anyone is evil. And it's akin to murder, because it says in Orthodox Siddur that if you spread propaganda, if you injure someone's reputation, it's akin to murder. This is what God was talking about here. This is what Yehovah was talking about to Israel. That there's blood in your hands. You've robbed my people. And you've ignored the orphans and the widows. And no one's there to plead their case. Why don't you plead their case? Change your life. Don't wait for Yom Kippur. Don't wait for Ninth of Av. To change your life in a way that, Yehovah God say, you are my friend. You are my Hahamud. You are my beloved. What a wonderful, sweet kiss from Yehovah God that would be if we knew what we're doing in our life in every decision that we're making. Please God that much to say, you are my friend. Well, God bless you. Shalom Aleichem. Share the wealth of knowledge and love and truth for everyone that's willing to hear. If they're not willing, change your life. Be a compelling witness, and they will come running to you. I'm a lighthouse on the hill. I will not be hid. I'm the shofar blast. I blow, and I actually blow it before Shabbat for the exile, north, south, east, and west, to bring them home, right? Don't wait for the Mashiach to come before you reorder your life. Mashiach will not fix stupid. This is Reb Yehovah ben-Emmett signing out. Until the next time, God bless you. Take care.